Tonight we're looking at the second noble truth. The cause of suffering. Dukkha samudaya. The cause of suffering. The whole idea of a cause sets the Buddha's teaching up as a cause-based religion, a cause-based philosophy, teaching. And that's important because there are philosophies, teachings, religions that believe in superpowers. And that's different from a cause-based religion because it implies potency, and it implies agency, the ability to control, to change, to wield mastery over something. A cause-based teaching is different from this, and gets in the way of the idea of a master or a god. It conflicts with it, right? So it's on the side of science, which tries to see order and an impersonal order. So the order is not dictated by someone's whim ultimately, but our whims, on the other hand, are a part of the system. That the system has some rules to it, some nature to it. So, for example, if there were an omnipotent being, then there could never be a cause for suffering. Because the omnipotent being could change it, could say, oh wait, I think today we'll make this the cause of suffering, right? As soon as you say there's a cause for suffering, I mean, if in the sense that we do in Buddhism, we're going against that idea. I mean, this isn't really what the Four Noble Truths are about, but it's an important point. Such that just describing this this nature, or this quality of the Buddha's teaching, was enough to lead Moggallana and Sariputta to become Sotapanna. They just heard that the Buddha taught cause and effect. And it was such a novel idea. It was just what they were looking for. It was all they needed to see the truth, to let go. So I think the implications of it are not easy to appreciate. It's hard to understand how a simple statement, ye dhamma hetupabhava, whatever dhammas arise by a cause, the Buddha has taught their cause and the cessation of the cause. And just that was enough for them to become Sotapanna. So the whole reason why the cause of suffering is craving is because it's out of line with reality. When you want something, whatever you want, you're going against this idea of order, right? A want has nothing to do with the way things are. If you consider, and it's such a profound truth that, or it's such an important or a fundamental reality that it makes almost no sense to us. The idea that craving, in its very nature, is out of touch with reality. I think this is something new to most people. I mean, you can think philosophically about how craving is. Yes, if you want things, you'll end up sometimes not getting what you want, but sometimes you'll get what you want. But we don't go the distance and to understand that by its very nature, craving is out of wanting, is out of touch with reality. The Buddha said ignorance is the cause of the cause of craving. It's only through ignorance that we want things. It's based on a misunderstanding of reality. I mean, the most sensible way of living with reality is something quite foreign to most people, but the most sensible way is to be in touch with reality. I mean, this whole teaching on mindfulness, what does it mean? It's the alternative to wanting, really. Wanting is the pushing and the pulling, the inclining, the manipulating. Mindfulness is the adjusting and adapting, accepting, understanding, the being, right? Mindfulness is now it's changing like this, now it's changing like that. Wanting is, may it not change like this, may it change like that. And there's a real difference there. And we have to understand that these are two fundamentally different ways of approaching life. They're really the two options. And the Buddha saw in his wisdom that the option of craving is the cause for suffering. The choice to try and manipulate and the way of inclining, favoring, clinging, attaching, this is a cause for suffering. He saw that it's based on this craving that all of our problems come about. All these things that the Buddha saw as a problem. Birth, birth is caused by craving. We're only reborn because we have some desire left. The Buddha saw this. Old age, sickness, and death thereby come from that. But even if we're not a Buddha or someone who can see those things, it's quite clear there's the other sorts of craving, or the other sorts of suffering that come from craving. Not getting what you want, getting what you don't want. You can't always get what you want. This is the harsh reality. I mean, it's set up in such a way to fail. Craving is not static, where you say, I think today I'll want something. I think today I'll want this. Okay, enough of that, back to not wanting it. It's not how it works. It's habitual. You want, and it becomes a part of your personality, especially when you get what you want. Getting what you want unavoidably leads to an increase in wanting. And that fact is crucial. Because if you could just keep wanting the same amount, that would be fine. Every time you get what you want, okay, good. Tomorrow I'll want it again and I'll get it again, good. It doesn't work that way. The next time you get what you want, it's not enough. Your wanting has increased So not only is it a problem when you don't get what you want, when reality doesn't provide the object of your desire, but also you need more. But getting the object of your desire is no longer enough. The object of your desire increases. We never think of this option. We never think of this as a viable way to live, a viable way to approach reality, to just be. No, I suppose we, in the abstract, we think of ourselves as most of the time just living. The truth is we're not. The truth is we're not really living. We're constantly losing track of reality, incessantly, repeatedly getting lost in not how things are, but how we wish they were. And so on the one hand, that's a problem because it's not going to be the way we want. So if you take the mind as the observer, as though we're in a car looking, watching as things go by, yeah, we're not always going to experience what we want, but it's worse than that, in fact. Because based on this want, we're not only going to wish and hope I see this, I hope I see that, but we're going to take detours, and we're going to make things more complicated as we want more and more. This isn't theoretical, this is what's happening in the world right now. War is almost entirely caused by greed, crime, family, domestic abuse. It's all caused by not getting what you want. By this, it's the reason why families fight. It's the reason why spouses cheat on each other. It's the reason why families fight, for sure. You start getting more and more selfish and cruel to each other, manipulative and angry because you're not given what you want. It's the cause of the raping of the natural world for resources, mining for resources, burning fuel, tearing down forests, putting up cities, driving here and there. It's the cause of so much hustle and bustle, so much complexity, so much energy invested. As a Buddhist, when you begin to meditate, you just realize. You take a step back and look at society, look at the world, and say, "Oh my, that's all it is." There's nothing mystical or magical about the human world. It's just a whole heap of craving, and all the things, all the problems and stresses that come with it. It's all it's ever been. It's just gotten more and more complicated. How can we get what we want? And there's so many. The Buddha said there are 3 kinds of craving that lead to further becoming. Craving for sensuality, and craving for becoming, and craving for non-becoming. Or craving for being and non-being. It's all craving. It's everything. All of our ambitions, all of our complicated goals, wanting to be this, wanting to be that, wanting to be rich or famous, wanting to become something, wanting to be born in heaven, wanting to be one with God. So there's the desire for sensuality. We want beautiful sights. We have craving for sights and sounds and smells, tastes and feelings that are pleasant. Desire for becoming is our ambitions, wanting to be rich and famous. Our attachment to ourselves, our body, our mind, attachment to a personality. Desire for non-becoming is desire for things not to be. I wish I were taller, I wish I were smarter, I wish I didn't, I wish I had different parents, or this kind of thing, you know. I wish I could quit my job. I wish I could go live in the forest. I wish I could leave this, leave that. I wish I didn't have this or that. I wish the mosquitoes weren't buzzing around my ear. I wish I could just die. Suicide is this sort of thing. Annihilationism, wishing for things to just end. The funny thing, wishing for things to end is another kind of craving that leads for things to come again. Because of the desire for things not to be, there will be more being. Special kinds of being that are more, I think, more void, but I'm not really sure exactly how that works in the bigger picture, but generally you're going to be without when you want to be without, I think. So and remember, for each of the truths there is a kicca, there is a task to be done. And the task in regards to the cause of craving is to abandon it. You abandon it through mindfulness. You abandon it in favor of mindfulness. There are different kinds of abandoning. Mindfulness is actually only a temporary abandoning. At the time when you're mindful, there's no craving. So it's abandoned. At the time when you're meditating in tranquility meditation, there's also no craving. When you enter into a trance, a jhana. But these kinds of abandoning are only temporary. And this is where you see the difference between tranquility and insight meditation. In tranquility meditation, yes, you abandon them. But so what? They come back. When you leave the jhana, you're not any more free of them. But when you practice insight meditation, they're abandoned. But the state of abandoning, because you're focused on the objects of your attraction, you also see that those things are not worth clinging to. You see why they are causing you suffering, why the craving is not leading to satisfaction. Oh, because these things are based on cause and effect. You see that the craving increases, that the objects don't increase. The objects of your desire are ultimately finite, and you start to understand these things because you're actually watching the process. And so the real abandoning is through wisdom, through seeing this, and ultimately through seeing nibbana, which is something that is actually satisfying and peaceful. And when you see Nibbana, of course, that's the ultimate. The abandoning through leaving behind samsara is that when you say, oh, right, yes, well, I guess that stuff isn't useful anymore, and now I've seen something better. It's abandoned by seeing suffering, by seeing the truth of suffering. When you see the truth of suffering, you abandon craving, because you see the things that you cling to. Remember again the 5 aggregates. You see them as suffering. As, again, not suffering inherently, but as something that is just going to cause you to suffer if you cling to it. It's something that can't satisfy, that can't provide happiness. The attachment to it only leads to more attachment. It doesn't lead to greater happiness. It leads to more and more and more wanting, less and less and less pleasure. So I think it's important that we compare these 2 paths, the path of mindfulness and the path of craving. The way we look at the world. It's how we're taught. It's why we're born. We're born because we think this way. We think in terms of, what do I want and how can I get it? Instead of what's happening and what is it? The mindful way. The mindful way of seeing things as they are. What's the cause? What's the result? What's happening right now? Mindfulness is just being. Mindfulness is this pure state. It's actually quite simple. But for us, it's like this. I mean, mindfulness has become a real buzzword. It's something exalted, and it is. But only because we're so wretched. We're so lost. We're so caught up on the wrong path. That this simple path, the simple way of being, that for an arahant is just second nature, first nature. It just seems so far away, up on the mountain. It's something we have to climb to the peak to get to. It's such a foreign concept, which is really our problem. It's nothing hard to understand about mindfulness. It's just we're really on the wrong path. So, second noble truth, the cause of suffering, that's craving. Craving is what leads to suffering, because it's not in line with reality. It's all about what we want and wish it could be rather than what it is and how we understand it, how we experience it. As a result, it leads to the world that we see around us. Stress, strife, suffering, dissatisfaction. So, that's the Dhamma for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I was going to go and see how many... Why is YouTube still offline? It still says it's offline. Oh, because I'm logged in as the wrong person now. Let me see here. I think we are online. Yes, we are online. I created a new account. I've been trying to figure out how to do this for a while, but I had tried before. So we can create a new channel and have managers. So I made Robin a manager, which means more than one person can upload and curate the channel. So we now have a Sirimangalo International channel that would be good for putting together playlists. I mean, I'm not going to do any of that, but if we can get a group of people, all of our volunteers together, they could put together playlists, and we could actually have some organization. So if anybody wants to volunteer, anyone who we know and trust, we should talk about that on Slack maybe. 47 people watching on YouTube. That's good. Okay, bunch of questions tonight. How does one deal with attachment to family? I find it almost impossible to lose the desire to see my daughter grow and live a happy life. Is this a form of desire that will eventually need to be overcome? It's not about overcoming desire. You eventually see that that desire is not helpful, useful, beneficial to you. And we approach this the wrong way. Again, this talk tonight hopefully sheds some light on this sort of question. Your attachment, your desire is in the end, it's meaningless. It's not useful, it's not helpful. It's not the desire that makes you a good father or mother. It's the wisdom and the clarity of mind. I think it's not easy being a mindful parent, and I think in fact it somehow eventually breaks down because you just don't have the capacity to care for send them off to school in the morning and get involved with them. You see, we're dealing with two very different worlds. The whole reproduction system, and I don't mean the reproductive system, but the reproduction, this whole system of giving birth and raising kids and so on, is the wrong way. It's an artificial form of rebirth that we've created. We're playing a game. It's not real. You have to get out of this. Remember, we're not dealing with God here. You have to get out of this idea that this was all preordained by some benevolent, omnipotent being. It's us, we've put this all together, we're playing a game. Okay, now I'll be the kid. My turn. I'll be your child this time. And so it breaks down when you start to meditate. You step back, whoa, you say, this is not the way to happiness. And I think part of our attachment as parents is based on a view, a belief in the system, a belief in the reproduction system, a buying into it. Yes, I'm the father, I'm the mother, this is my child. I now am the father, the mother, the parent. This is my child, which is all kind of rubbish. It's all just a game we're playing. It's romantic. It's romance, really. It's this romantic notion. It doesn't mean much, which is very hard to see. Again, this is a good example of how very different and how very in opposition these two paths are. But practically speaking, that's more theoretical. Practically speaking, it's not so dire or drastic, but you will find as you meditate that you're less attached. And I think it's good to point out that this is the reason. And the reason is that it's not really meaningful. You being a parent, them being a child. it's just your romantic notion of how things are. And I mean, I guess it sounds easy for me to say. I've never been married or had children, not in this life. But I know people who have, and who have said the same sorts of things. When they meditate, they get less. Like this woman came to me, she wanted me to teach her son to meditate. She wanted me to help her son, she said. My son, she'd heard about me. Oh yeah, I'd been helping out at the Thai monastery in California, and she came and said, okay, well, she wants me to help her son. I said, okay, I'll help your son, you come and meditate. I said, and I tried to explain to her that if you come and meditate, your relationship with him will be better. You'll be better able to help him. She came, and eventually I convinced her, and she came, tried it out, and eventually finished the course with me. And I saw her later and asked her, "How's your son?" He said, "I don't care. He's going his own way." He was grown up at the time. He wasn't a toddler by any means. And then, of course, there's Eva and Kinga. Kinga is this little girl who was conceived in between meditation courses. It's very interesting. She was pregnant with this girl when she came and did a course with us. And so she's been raising this girl as a meditator. And she's described some of the difficulties of it. But I think some of the power as well. This girl hasn't grown up. Kinga hasn't grown up like any other girl, because her mother was so mindful. But she's had to struggle with this sort of question, and not really exactly the attachment, because in fact, she's noticed that she's not really attached, but she has this sense of obligation, which is, I think, reasonable. It is her responsibility. It is her lot in life to look after this girl. But the girl is just another person. It's not like it's her daughter. It's just a person who is under her care. I don't know if this is if this is exactly the answer you're looking for. I think the most important thing for most people to keep in mind is not that you have to let go, but that eventually you do let go. And that's a bold claim that you can test. You don't have to worry, because if the only way you'll let go of it is if you see for yourself, without me trying to convince you, that it's not worth clinging to. If you still see that it's worth clinging to, there's no way anyone can make you let go of it. That's how mindfulness works. Should formal meditation and daily mindfulness begin to feel similar? Yes, absolutely. At the meditation conference, one of the neurologists stated that mindfulness is done without any energy or effort. Is that according to our tradition also? I mean, no, absolutely not. But you know how I talk about energy. It's important to differentiate between the forceful energy and the uplifting energy. It should feel effortless eventually, but that's because it's like when you're pedaling a bicycle, right? If you want to get up the hill, you got to pedal really hard. So the point is, we're lazy. Our default is lazy. Our default is slothful. It's either slothful or the energy is focused in the wrong direction. Some people are too energetic. But the energy that we have to put out is to give up both the slothfulness and the distraction, the excitement of too much energy. So it's not that it's, I wouldn't say that it's done without any energy or effort, but that once one is truly mindful, it feels effortless. It doesn't feel like any special energy need to be exerted. But that's because one's pedaled the bike enough and is now coasting. That's because one is perfectly tuned, right? It should feel as the most natural thing in the world. It really is. Lately, no thoughts, images, or emotions arise to note. There is only the object of meditation, the abdomen. Realizes experience is impermanent. I wonder if this is a problem. Well, if you're wondering, then that's something. You can say wondering, worried, concerned. If you feel quiet or calm, you should note that. Calm, or quiet. Neutral feelings are still feelings. It's a feeling of calm. But no, it's not a problem. It's impermanence. You're seeing something new. It wasn't like this before, now it's like this. You're seeing how things can change. I have a question in regards to the first noble truth. Does being in the womb before birth and the nourishment that is fed to the fetus have an impact on the mind-body experience throughout life? Yes, absolutely. In fact, you might say those are even more important because they're formative. That's when the physical form is being formed. It'd be interesting to look into how the baby's mind, the experiences of the baby in the womb, the impact of those experiences on one's life, on the formation of the fetus, the formation of the physical body. If the mind is constantly being stressed, I would bet that there would be changes, probably not huge, but there would be changes to the physicality of the baby, because it's very formative. It's an interesting thought. I don't have any evidence or of that, but it seems quite likely. Of course, there's much that is already decided. You know, the physical DNA from the parents that one has already made a determination to get involved in, to live in, is already quite fixed. So it's not going to be huge changes. But I bet there would be. Suffering from weight. I often eat very much and often unhealthy things. I also smoke and drink alcohol. And these things give me an option to escape the emptiness. What can I do? When I meditate and I reach a pleasant condition, I then have thoughts. But this condition too is perishable. What can one cling to when everything is transient? Well, one doesn't cling, right? This is, again, this talk today, I think, is what you need as an answer. The whole way of looking at the world, of clinging, of trying to change, that the emptiness is a problem, that loneliness is a problem, that depression is a problem. They're not problems. That weight is a problem. Weight is, what is weight? Weight is completely relative. I'm sure you weigh less than a great blue whale. And I'm sure that if you were on Mars, you would weigh a lot less. You don't have a problem with weight. Weight is not a problem. You could say that eating too much is a problem, but it's not really. The problem is craving. The problem is the way you look at the world. You look at the world in terms of what do I want and how can I get it. That's the wrong paradigm.